in the heart of Nevada's sun-scorched desert, where the horizon shimmers like a mirage and the wind carries the scent of sagebrush and rust, lies Dust Haven, a forgotten speck of a town clinging to the edge of nowhere. Tumbleweeds roll lazily across cracked asphalt, and the only sound louder than the cicadas is the occasional groan of a rusted windmill spinning in the dry breeze. At the edge of this desolate place, behind a chain-link fence choked with dust, stands an old hangar. Its corrugated metal walls are pockmarked with age, and the faded sign above the gate reads, Ellie's Repairs. Nobody in Dust Haven knows much about Ellie Harper, the woman who runs it. To them, she's just the quiet mechanic who fixes their pickups and tractors, her hands stained with grease, her eyes always scanning the horizon like she's waiting for something, or someone. Ellie, 38, keeps to herself. Her dark hair is always pulled back in a loose braid, and her worn denim jacket hangs loosely over a frame that's wiry but strong. She speaks little, her voice low and measured, with a faint drawl that hints at a past spent far from Dust Haven's borders. The townsfolk don't ask questions. They don't know about the dog tags she keeps tucked under her shirt or the old flight helmet gathering dust in the back of her shop. They don't know that Ellie Harper isn't her real name, or that she was once Captain Eleanor Hawke Grayson, one of the Air Force's most decorated test pilots, a woman who could thread a jet through a storm's eye and land it on a dime. That was before the crash, before the inquiry, before the world turned its back on her. Ellie's days are predictable now. She rises with the dawn, the desert sky bruising purple and gold as she unlocks the hangar. The clank of tools and the hum of a radio playing old country tunes fill the air. She works alone, her only company the ghosts of her past. The memory of her co-pilot, Lieutenant Daniel "Danny" Ruiz, whose laughter still echoes in her dreams, and the promise she made to him as they plummeted from the sky in a prototype jet that never should have flown. "I'll make it right," she'd whispered, clutching his hand as the wreckage burned around them. Danny didn't make it. Ellie did. And she's been running from that day ever since, hiding in Dust Haven, where no one asks about the scars on her knuckles or the weight in her eyes. But Dust Haven isn't as sleepy as it seems. Beneath its quiet surface, something stirs. The town sits near Area 51, a place shrouded in whispers of government secrets and experimental tech. Most locals dismiss the rumors as tourist bait, but Ellie knows better. She's seen the black SUVs rolling through at midnight, their tinted windows reflecting the neon glow of the town's only diner. She's heard the low rumble of unmarked helicopters slicing through the night. And she's noticed the new faces, sharp-eyed men in suits who linger too long at the gas station, asking questions about her hangar. Have you ever been underestimated? Felt like the world looked right through you? Share your story in the comments. It's a blistering Tuesday morning when trouble arrives. The desert sun beats down mercilessly, turning the hangar into an oven. Ellie's under the hood of a battered Ford, her fingers deftly tightening a bolt when the crunch of gravel announces a visitor. She doesn't look up right away, but her senses sharpen. The rhythm of the footsteps is too precise, too purposeful. Wiping her hands on a rag, she steps out to see a man in a crisp black suit, his sunglasses glinting like beetle shells. He's tall, with a jawline that looks carved from granite, and he carries himself like someone used to being obeyed. "Ellie Harper?" he asks, his voice clipped. "Who's asking?" She leans against the doorframe, her posture relaxed, but her eyes locked on his. "Agent Carter, Department of Defense." He flashes a badge, but Ellie doesn't bother looking at it. She's seen too many of those in her time. "We need to talk." "Talk's cheap," she says, tossing the rag onto a workbench. "Fixing engines isn't. What do you want?" Carter steps closer, undeterred by her tone. "We have a situation. Something sensitive. And we believe you're the only one who can help." Ellie's stomach tightens, but her face remains a mask. She's heard lines like this before, right before they sent her and Danny into that doomed test flight. "Not interested," she says, turning back to the truck. "It's about the X-17 program," Carter says, and Ellie freezes. The X-17. The prototype jet she and Danny were testing when it went down. The one the Air Force claimed was a failure, burying the truth under a mountain of redacted reports. "We've got a problem, and it's bigger than you know." She turns slowly, her heart pounding. That program's dead. Been dead for 10 years. Not anymore. Carter's voice lowers, and he glances over his shoulder as if the desert itself might be listening. "We need you to come with me. Now." Ellie wants to say no. Every instinct screams at her to walk away, to keep hiding, but Danny's voice echoes in her mind. "Make it right." She grabs her jacket, the dog tags clinking softly against her chest. "5 minutes," she says. "Then I'm done." What would you do if your past came knocking? Would you open the door? Tell us below. Carter drives her to a remote airstrip an hour outside Dusthaven, a place so barren it feels like the edge of the world. The runway is cracked, flanked by sagebrush and abandoned hangars, but a sleek black helicopter waits, its blades slicing the air with a low, menacing thrum. Ellie's pulse quickens. She knows that sound, military, high-spec, the kind of chopper that doesn't officially exist. Inside the chopper, Carter hands her a tablet with a classified briefing. The X-17 program, he explains, wasn't scrapped. It was moved underground, deeper than even Ellie knew. The jet she and Danny flew was just a prototype for something far more ambitious, a hypersonic craft capable of evading any radar, armed with tech that could shift the balance of global power. But something's gone wrong. A new X-17 prototype, codenamed Spectre, has been hijacked. Not by a foreign government, but by a rogue faction within the US military, a group calling themselves the Iron Vanguard. They're led by General Victor Stahl, a decorated war hero turned traitor who believes the government's too weak to wield the Spectre's power. "They're planning to use it," Carter says, his voice grim. "A demonstration, a city leveled, to prove a point." Ellie's throat tightens. "Why me? You've got pilots, special forces. Why drag me out of my shop?" Carter hesitates, then slides a photo across the tablet. It's Danny, smiling in his flight suit, the Nevada mountains behind him. "Because you flew the original. You know its systems better than anyone. And because Danny Ruiz trusted you." The mention of Danny hits like a punch. Ellie's fingers trace the dog tags under her shirt. She wants to throw the tablet out the chopper door, to scream at Carter for dragging her back into this nightmare. But the image of a city in flames, of innocence paying for Stahl's madness, keeps her rooted. She nods, her jaw tight. What's the plan? They land at a covert base, hidden in the desert, a sprawling complex of bunkers and hangars masked by camouflage netting. The air smells of jet fuel and ozone, and the hum of generators fills the silence. Carter leads her to a briefing room where a handful of operatives wait, hardened men and women who eye Ellie with skepticism. To them, she's a nobody, a washed-up mechanic in a faded jacket. She feels their stares, the same ones she got 10 years ago when she walked into the Air Force's elite test pilot program as the only woman in the room. The mission is simple but impossible. Infiltrate Stahl's compound, a fortified base in the Mojave Desert, and disable the Spectre before it can launch. The jet's guarded by a private army, advanced security systems, and Stahl himself, a man who's spent decades perfecting the art of war. Ellie's role is to bypass the jet's onboard AI, which has been reprogrammed to obey only Stahl. No one else in the room has ever flown the X-17. No one else knows its quirks, its flaws, the way it hums when it's about to stall. "You're asking me to walk into a lion's den," Ellie says, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "We're asking you to save millions," Carter replies. "You in or out?" She thinks of Danny, of the promise she made. She thinks of Dusthaven, of the life she's built to hide from her past. And she thinks of the Spectre, a machine she helped create, now twisted into a weapon of chaos. "I'm in," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Have you ever had to face a choice that could change everything? What did you choose? Share below. The team moves out at dusk. the desert sky bleeding red and gold. Ellie's in the back of a tactical van, surrounded by operatives checking their weapons. She's not armed. She's no soldier, not anymore. But her mind is racing, piecing together the X-17 systems from memory. The jet's AI is a beast, designed to adapt and counter any intrusion. She'll need to hack it mid-flight, assuming she can even get to the cockpit. The compound looms ahead, a fortress of concrete and steel nestled in a canyon. Floodlights sweep the perimeter, and drones hum overhead like vultures. The team splits up, the operatives moving like shadows to disable the outer defenses. Ellie's job is to slip through a maintenance tunnel to the hangar where the Spectres kept. She crawls through the dark, the air thick with dust and the faint tang of oil. Her heart pounds, but her hands are steady. She's done this before, not in a tunnel, but in the sky, when every second meant life or death. She emerges in the hangar, and there it is, the Spectre. It's a sleek, black beast, its wings curved like a raptor's, its hull glinting under the harsh lights. For a moment, Ellie's back in the cockpit with Danny, the Nevada mountains blurring below them. She shakes it off, moving to the jet's access panel. Her fingers fly over the controls, bypassing security protocols she helped design a decade ago. The AI fights back, locking her out with a screech of digital alarms, but Ellie's faster. She's always been faster. Then the hangar doors groan open. Stahl's men pour in, weapons raised. Ellie ducks behind a crate, her breath catching as bullets ricochet off the jet's hull. The operatives are pinned down outside, and she's alone. Her eyes dart to the cockpit. It's a long shot, but it's her only one. She sprints, dodging gunfire, and climbs into the Spectre. The controls are familiar, like an extension of her body. She powers it up, the engines roaring to life, shaking the hangar like a thunderstorm. Stahl's voice crackles over the comms. "You can't run, Harper. This jet's mine now." She doesn't respond. The jet lurches forward, tearing through the hangar doors. The desert night opens before her, vast and unforgiving. She's airborne in seconds, the Spectre screaming into the sky. Alarms blare, the AI's fighting her, locking the controls. She's got minutes before Stahl's drones catch up, and the jet's weapons are still armed, ready to fire on his command. Ellie's hands dance over the controls, her mind racing. She can hear Danny's voice, calm and steady. "You've got this, Hawk." She bypasses the AI's defenses, rerouting power to the manual controls. The jet responds, banking hard as she pulls it into a climb. Below, the desert is a sea of shadows, pierced by the lights of Stahl's pursuing drones. She's not out of this yet. What would you risk to keep a promise? Share your thoughts below. The Spectre soars higher, the stars blurring above as Ellie fights for control. Stahl's voice echoes in her ears, promising retribution. The city he's targeted, Las Vegas, bright and sprawling, lies just over the horizon. If she fails, millions will pay the price. But Ellie Harper doesn't fail. Not when it matters. Not when Danny's watching. The jet shudders, a warning light flashing. Something's wrong. Something deep in the Spectre's systems. Ellie's eyes narrow. This isn't just about the AI anymore. There's a failsafe, a hidden protocol she didn't design. And as the drones close in, their missiles locking on, she realizes the truth. Someone on her team isn't who they seem. To be continued. What do you think Ellie will do next? Share your predictions in the comments. If you believe in those who fight for what's right, share this story. The Spectre jet screams through the Nevada night, its engines a primal roar against the silence of the desert sky. Ellie Harper grips the controls, her knuckles white, her pulse hammering in her ears. The stars above blur into streaks as she pushes the hypersonic craft to its limits, weaving through the air to evade the drones trailing her like wolves. Their missile lock warnings screech through the cockpit, red lights pulsing on the console. Ellie's no stranger to danger. She's danced with death in cockpits before, but this is different. The Spectre's AI is fighting her, its systems glitching with a hidden protocol she didn't design. And worse, someone on her team is a traitor. The comms crackle, and General Victor Stahl's voice cuts through. cold and venomous. "You're out of your depth, Harper. Surrender the jet, or Las Vegas burns by dawn." Ellie's jaw tightens. She can see the city's glow on the horizon, a beacon of life against the dark. Millions of people, families, dreamers, strangers, unaware of the shadow looming above. She thinks of Danny Ruiz, her co-pilot, whose dog tags hang heavy against her chest. His voice echoes in her mind. "Make it right." She won't let Stahl win. Not tonight. But the jet's AI is a beast, its code twisting like a living thing. Ellie's fingers fly over the controls, rerouting power, bypassing firewalls. The Spectre shudders, its wings slicing through the air as she banks hard to avoid a missile. The explosion blooms behind her, a fireball lighting up the desert below. She's buying time, but it's running out. The drones are closing in, and the failsafe she detected, a hidden command buried deep in the jet systems, is counting down. If she can't crack it, the Spectre will lock her out and execute Stahl's orders. Have you ever faced a moment where trust was broken? How did you fight through it? Share below. Ellie's mind races, piecing together the puzzle. The failsafe isn't just a program, it's a kill switch designed to override the pilot and turn the Spectre into a weapon of annihilation. She remembers the briefing at the covert base, the skeptical stares of the operatives, the way Agent Carter's eyes lingered on her just a beat too long. Someone fed Stahl her location. Someone knew she'd take the jet. And now, she's alone in the sky, with no one to trust but herself. The comms buzz again, but this time it's not Stahl. It's Carter. "Harper, status!" His voice is urgent, but there's an edge to it Ellie doesn't like. "Busy," she snaps, dodging another missile. The jet groans as she pulls it into a steep climb, the G-forces pressing her into the seat. "Your intel was garbage. There's a failsafe in the system. Care to explain?" Silence. Then Carter's voice, strained. "That's impossible. The Spectre was secure." "Tell that to the drones trying to blow me out of the sky," Ellie says, her voice sharp as steel. She cuts the comms, her suspicions confirmed. Carter's hiding something. Maybe he's the traitor. Maybe he's just a pawn. Either way, she's on her own. The desert below is a sea of shadows, broken only by the faint glow of Stahl's compound in the distance. Ellie's eyes flick to the console, where the failsafe's countdown ticks relentlessly. 12 minutes until the Spectre's AI takes full control. She needs to land, to regroup, but there's nowhere safe. The drones are relentless, their missiles painting the sky with streaks of fire. She's running out of maneuvers. Then she remembers the old airstrip near Dusthaven, the one she used to fly to in secret during her test pilot days. It's abandoned, hidden in a canyon, its runway barely intact. If she can make it there, she might have a chance to hack the failsafe. But it's a gamble. The airstrip's too short for a hypersonic jet, and the drones won't give her a clean shot. What would you do when the odds are stacked against you? Share your story in the comments. Ellie banks the Spectre toward Dusthaven, the jet's engines screaming as she pushes it past Mach 3. The drones follow, their sensors locked on her heat signature. She dives low, skimming the desert floor, kicking up clouds of sand that glint in the moonlight. The canyon's jagged walls loom ahead, a narrow gauntlet of rock and shadow. She's flown tighter spaces, but never with a jet this volatile, its AI fighting her every move. The cockpit shakes, warning lights flashing. The AI's voice, cold, synthetic, blares through the speakers. "Unauthorized pilot detected. Control lock in 10 minutes. Ellie curses under her breath, her hands steady despite the chaos. She rewires the console on the fly, splicing circuits with a multi-tool she keeps strapped to her thigh. Sparks fly, singeing her fingers, but she doesn't flinch. She's Captain Hawk Grayson again, the pilot who could outfly a storm. The canyon opens into the airstrip, its cracked runway barely visible under a layer of dust. Ellie cuts the engines, letting the Spectre glide on momentum. The drones are still behind her, their missiles closing fast. She pulls the jet into a near-vertical descent, the ground rushing up like a fist. The landing gear groans as it deploys, and the jet hits the runway with a bone-rattling thud. It skids, tires screaming, kicking up a storm of gravel and sand. Ellie fights the controls, keeping the nose up as the jet slides toward the canyon wall. It stops inches from disaster, the engines whining as they power down. She's out of the cockpit in seconds, her boots hitting the ground. The drones are circling above, their sensors scanning for her. She sprints to an old maintenance shed, its door hanging off rusted hinges. Inside, she finds a dusty laptop, her old backup, hidden here years ago. It's a relic, but it might be enough. She plugs it into the Spectre's external port, her fingers flying over the keys as she hacks into the failsafe. The code is a labyrinth, layered with encryption she's never seen. But Ellie's not just a pilot. She's an engineer, trained to unravel machines like this. She traces the failsafe's origin, her heart sinking as she finds a signature buried in the code. D. Ruiz. Danny, her co-pilot, the man who died in her arms. Someone's used his name, his legacy, to weaponize the Spectre. The betrayal cuts deeper than any missile. Have you ever uncovered a truth that changed everything? What did you do? Tell us below. The countdown's at 5 minutes when Ellie cracks the failsafe's outer layer. The code reveals a chilling truth. The Iron Vanguard isn't just a rogue faction. They've got allies in the Department of Defense, high-ranking officials who greenlit the Spectre's hijacking to justify a new arms race. Carter's name is all over the files, his digital fingerprints on every order. He's not just a traitor, he's the architect. Ellie's hands tremble, not from fear, but from rage. She thinks of Danny, of the crash that took him, of the inquiry that blamed her to cover up the truth. The X-17 program was never a failure. It was a setup, a way to bury her and Danny while the real players moved their pieces. Now they're using her again, dangling her as bait to draw out Stahl. The drones are closing in, their engines a low growl above the shed. Ellie's got no time to process the betrayal. She uploads a virus to the Spectre's AI, a desperate patch to stall the failsafe. It buys her minutes, maybe less. She needs to get the jet airborne again, to keep it out of Stahl's hands. But as she sprints back to the cockpit, a black SUV roars onto the airstrip. Carter steps out, flanked by 2 operatives, their weapons trained on her. "Stand down, Harper," Carter calls, his voice calm but laced with menace. "You're in over your head." Ellie freezes, her hand on the jet's ladder. "You used Danny's name," she says, her voice low and dangerous. "You used him to build this weapon." Carter's face hardens. Danny was collateral damage. So are you. The Spectre's bigger than both of you. Ellie's eyes narrow. She's done running, done hiding. She dives into the cockpit as gunfire erupts, bullets sparking off the jet's hull. The engines roar to life, and she pulls the Spectre into a vertical climb, the G-forces pinning her to the seat. The drones are back, their missiles locking on, but Ellie's not thinking about them. She's thinking about Danny, about the promise she made. She's thinking about justice. The Spectre soars over Dusthaven, the town's lights twinkling below like stars fallen to earth. Ellie's virus is holding the AI at bay, but the failsafe's still active, its countdown at 2 minutes. She can't disable it, not without more time, but she can redirect it. She sets a new course, not for Las Vegas, but for Stahl's compound. If the Spectre's going to detonate, it's taking the Iron Vanguard with it. The drones are relentless, their missiles grazing the jet's wings. Ellie weaves through the sky, her movements precise, almost supernatural. She's not just flying. She's rewriting the Spectre's legacy, turning it from a weapon of chaos into a shield for the innocent. The comms crackle, and Stahl's voice returns, furious. "You can't stop this, Harper. You're nothing." "I'm enough," she says, and cuts the line. The compound comes into view, a fortress of steel and hubris. Ellie dives, the Spectre screaming toward its target. The failsafe's at 30 seconds. She ejects at the last moment, her parachute blooming as the jet crashes into the compound's heart. The explosion is a supernova, lighting up the desert for miles. Stahl's empire burns, his drones falling from the sky like dying stars. Ellie lands hard in the sand, her body bruised but alive. She watches the flames, her chest heaving. The dog tags are warm against her skin. She's kept her promise. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for Danny. For truth. Days later, back in Dust Haven, a letter arrives at her hangar. No sender, just a single line. You were always enough. D. Ellie's breath catches. It's not Danny's handwriting, but it doesn't matter. It's closure. She tucks the letter away, her eyes on the horizon. The townsfolk still don't know her story, and that's fine. She's not here for their applause. She didn't come for glory. She came for truth. If you believe in those who fight for what's right, share this story.